Designate the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 55 South Pioneer Boulevard in Springboro, Ohio as the Richard Dick Chenault Post Office Building.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Chaffetz, and the gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. Lawrence, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Utah.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous materials on the bill under consideration.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of H.R. 558, introduced by Mr. Chabot. It's a very appropriate bill to recognize somebody in that community, and we'd like to recognize and grant as much time as he may consume to Congressman Steve Chabot.
Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman from Utah for yielding. I rise today to speak on behalf of H.R. 558, which names the post office in Springboro, Ohio, after Richard Chenault. Mr. Chenault was born in Xenia, Ohio, on December 26, 1925. He was married to his wife, Phyllis, for 63 years. They have 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. He was a lifelong resident of Springboro and Clear Creek Townships before passing away back in November of 2010. Throughout his life, Richard Chenault dedicated himself to serving his community and his nation. A World War II veteran, Mr. Chenault served in the United States Army's 1st Cavalry Division from 1944 to 1946, including a year in occupied Japan. Upon returning to Ohio after the war, he sought a career in which he could continue to serve, this time his local community. He found that opportunity with the U.S. Postal Service, where he was one of the first letter carriers for Springboro for that particular post office. He served his community as an employee of the post office for 22 years. But Richard Chenault's dedication to his community and his neighbors didn't stop there. He was a member of the Clear Creek Township Volunteer Fire Department for 45 years and served as chief of the department for 23 of those years. Additionally, he was a part-time police officer during the 50s and 60s and early 1970s. And he was a charter member of the Springboro Lions Club, which was founded in 1953, and he didn't miss a meeting for 57 years. Somehow, he even found time to frequently mow lawns and shovel snow and check on his elderly neighbors. Not surprisingly, Mr. Chenault was adored and revered by the Springboro community. When he passed, his obituary in the Dayton Daily News was headlined, "Springboro Icon Dies." And he had one of the largest funerals in Springboro history. Since his passing, members of the community have sought the best way to honor a man who did so much for so many. Fittingly, the community has rallied to remember him by naming their local post office the Richard Chenault Post Office, and it was the post office that allowed Mr. Chenault to do what he loved best, to serve his neighbors. I ask for your support in honoring this extraordinary public servant by supporting this bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Utah.